Here with the very latest, two of the most accurate pollsters in America, chief pollster at the Trafalgar Group, Robert Cahaly, and the Insider Advantage chairman, Matt Towery. You know, I won't mention either of your poll in the first question, but Matt, what I did see that was most interesting, USA Today, Suffolk poll showing the people that are breaking late, they identified them at about 16%, are now going overwhelmingly to the GOP. Do you see the same thing in the polls you're looking at?
Well, I think Robert is going to agree with me with this. Yes, we see late breakers going Republican, but we saw 3 weeks ago, and we said this on your show, that we saw a wave developing across this country moving towards Republicans anyway. So in a sense, we sort of feel like the story of USA Today, at least I do, is sort of like playing catch up to explain why suddenly all the polls are showing these Republicans winning. We've been showing the Republicans gaining in Arizona, in Pennsylvania, even in New Hampshire, which I think could be the upset special of the entire night. We've been seeing it going on for at least 3.5 weeks, and it just seems to keep building. I mean, certainly our latest poll in Georgia, Herschel Walker is making incredible moves very late in this race after he's been beaten to death on television with all these
ads. That's a state where if you don't get 50% plus one, you'd have a runoff on December the 6th, correct?
That is correct. And it's still highly possible that he could be in a runoff, although it will be a little better this time for any Republican because they've shortened the time period of that runoff so you don't drag on until January. That would probably inure to Walker's benefit in a runoff.
All right, Robert, same question.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing we've been talking about is when we measure these undecideds, and the undecideds almost every time are breaking very much anti-Biden. So we're not shocked when these undecideds end up in the Republican column because, 60-70% of undecideds in every race are anti-Biden.
Yeah. Let me ask you both a demographic question, then we'll go through the individual races. Demographically, I'm seeing it in your polls, Robert. I'm seeing it in your polls, Matt, but in other polls around the country as well. Demographically, we are seeing what I believe to be a pretty big shift in terms of African-American voters. Hispanic American voters are moving in big numbers to Republicans. I'll give you two states, Georgia and Pennsylvania. Matt Towery.
Yeah, and this is becoming common, not just in those states, but Robert and I both keep getting these crosstabs back, and we consistently see where the African-American vote, about 20% or more, are going for Republican candidates. And when it comes to either Hispanic, Latino, or what we call other, I mean, sometimes it's 60-something% for the Republican. I mean, not always, but these are things that we've never seen before. I've never consistently seen Republican candidates getting 20% of the African-American vote this close to the election. I certainly have never seen Hispanic, Latinos, or other races trending Republican like I'm seeing in this particular year.
Robert, I know I'm looking at your polls, so I see that you're picking up that trend as well.
Well, very much so. And the two states you mentioned are particularly interesting, with Walker doing 23% among black voters, and Governor Kemp is doing 20, but what's really fascinating is how well Oz is doing. I mean, we've got Oz in the 30s and the only one in the country that's breaking 20% with African-American women.
Wow. All right. Now let's go through the states that we're talking about. You could pick any race that I'm going to mention here. That's fine. We have Marco Rubio in Florida. We'll take off the table. I'm not worried about John Kennedy. I'm not worried about Rand Paul. I'm not worried about Tim Scott. I'm not worried about Charles Grassley. But we have Rubio now is up by double digits. I guess we can add him to that list. All right, but we have Herschel in Georgia, Herschel Walker, against Raphael Warnock. Then we have Ted Budd in North Carolina. Then we have General Don Bolduc in New Hampshire. We have Oz in Pennsylvania. I think Ron Johnson is doing better in Wisconsin. We have J.D. Vance in Ohio. We have Eric Schmidt in Missouri. We have out in Arizona, Blake Masters. We have Adam Laxalt. Then you've got these other races we're beginning to pay a little bit of attention to, like Tiffany Smiley in the state of Washington, Joe O'Dea in the state of Colorado. Let's go through those states. Robert, we'll give you the first crack at it. Which ones, if you had to pick today, 11 days outside the election, which states would you predict go red on Election Day?
I definitely think you end up with Oz, Walker, and I believe that Masters gets over the hump. I think Smiley's in a dogfight and quite possible. I would actually give an edge now to Bulldog winning, and I don't think O'Day gets close enough.
And obviously, J.D. Vance, you don't worry about him. You don't worry about Ron Johnson
no.
in Wisconsin.
Right.
All right, Matt, your take.
Okay, well, the incumbents we just talked about, they're all safe. Let's talk about some of these other races. Herschel Walker either gets in a runoff or wins straight up. Arizona Masters was 4 points down in our poll 2 weeks ago for the Fox affiliate in Phoenix. Now it's 2 points, and Lake is rising so quickly and so strongly as the Republican gubernatorial candidate. I think that could be a sweep, and Masters could win. Let's talk about some of the others. Nevada, as Laxalt clearly is going to win that seat. Pennsylvania, I think the bottom is falling out of Fetterman's campaign after that debate, and that you saw a huge move when we had our poll in Pennsylvania for the Fox affiliate there in Philadelphia. Here's the issue, though. So many people have already early voted in Philadelphia and did not see the debate, which, by the way, our poll showed that Oz won it 54% to 21% among those who saw the debate. I don't know. It's going to be a photo finish in Pennsylvania, partially because so many people had voted before they saw this debate. I think the same-day vote and the rest of the vote is going to be extremely weighted in the direction of Oz after that performance by Fetterman.
Let me ask both of you this. We see that Joe Biden is hiding out in Delaware while Jill Biden and Barack Obama are being brought in as surrogates in a lot of the states we're talking about. Do you see any impact that they can have on these races? Matt?
No.
None.
Just no.
Okay, simple answer.
None.
Robert, any impact?
Well, considering that Joe would be a -1, I will just say 0.
So Barack Obama will be of no help to Democratic candidates?
He could potentially, Sean, in places like Atlanta with Fulton County, which I'm very familiar with, he might increase the interest and the turnout a little bit. But look, the African-American turnout in Georgia has ticked down in early voting. It started out at 36%, which is very robust. To win Georgia, there has to be an African-American turnout of at least 33%. And as of today, in early voting, it's now down to 30%. So Barack Obama has got a lot of work to do if he's going to pull either one of these candidates through. It's not going to be Stacey. If he's going to help Warnock, he's got a lot to do in a short period of time, and I don't see it working.
All right, last word, Robert.
Not to mention the fact that there's so many of these African-American voters are going to vote for Walker and going to vote for Kemp. So you got to be careful who you turn out, because when they haven't broken into 80 yet. So when only 70% of the people are actually voting for them, turning them out might not be the panacea they think it is.
I don't think anybody
Absolutely.
can help Stacey Abrams at this point. I think she has run the worst campaign of any one single candidate this cycle. All right, Robert, thank you. Matt Towery, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.